Hello, I am Barendipitous, and, well, this is my Orion theory. Little note here, you may notice the room is a little bit different. My desk is a bit different. Most of the room is being covered by the screen behind me, but I do hope to make a fun little video or stream kind of showing my new like office area and game rooms and stuff. But this video is specifically focused on this lore theory that's been it's been a while in the making. It's especially inspired by well, Defensive is a big inspiration for this. I'll talk a bit more about his theory from yonder years, but also basically ever since Red Raptor came out, I think about a month or so ago. And I've just been kind of, well, you'll see. Anyway, but yeah, here we go. Let's get into this. So basically, I wanted to start with the theories, the basic, like, this is gonna have a lot of information. I'm gonna go over all the lore, all the relevant lore information that we know. But I am going to, here we go. But I'm going to kind of summarize what my main ideas are here. So these are all theories again, and I will show evidence I'll show the evidence I have to support them later. The Val we know is not the first Val in existence. Koji is a native of Shen Sakai, which is Red Raptor's home planet. Loki is planning something, although that's probably not terribly surprising. And Orion is... I actually have a name to fill in the blank there, but you'll see that later in the video. You'll also get to see the rest of that that piece of fan art there that you see with the gray boxes and question mark and everything. I'll reveal the rest of that towards the end of this video. So let me begin with, like many other, good studies, good academic studies begin with a literature review. Basically, like what information is out there right now. Like before starting this research, I looked at what information is out there right now, right? And so we got so the lore of various legends. So Orion, Ulgrim, Petra, Red Raptor. All of these legends have something to say about either Darkheart, Terminus, or Loki, or multiple. All right. Existing fan theories. I'm pretty like the big one is really Defensive's video from back in 2019, talking about who is Orion. His theory, to sum it up, it's a fun video. He worked hard on that one, and it was great. It was a great video for that time from him. But yeah, and obviously it was years before he became employed at BMG, so he could make fan theories. But anyway, his theory boiled down to this: Orion escaped his universe's Ragnarok as the last survivor of Brawlhalla, a male Valkyrie, and he has come to this Brawlhalla to save it from Ragnarok. And so you can kind of see with this image that I share here, a picture of an image of Defensive where he's saying an idiot's theory. That's just a theory, an idiot's theory at the end of his video. But also that graphic there with those are multiple universes where Orion came from his universe, and he said, everything hit the fan there, and he moved to this universe and said, hey, what's up? Bad stuff is coming, and whatever. And it just... Anyway, that's his theory. And he also said that because Orion comes from a different universe, then he is considered a foreign entity in this universe, triggering the immune response that resulted in Artemis. If you kind of think about how our own body's immune system works, it detects foreign entities. It detects bacteria or a virus or something, and it attacks it. It doesn't like it. It's something that's from outside. It's something from outside the body that should not be, and it tries to deal with the threat. And that's essentially what Defensive was saying with how Artemis works here against Orion, and everything, which I think is great. And that and that up to this point has been my favorite fan theory ever. Like, that's basically been my headcanon for the past 4 years. I still really like that theory. And I'm going to kind of like sort of piggyback off of that with my own thoughts as well. Other stuff we know about also about Terminus, that's not in the lore specifically. There are, well, I mean, we got these, like, there was, so patch 3.35 released the Terminus cosmetics. Like, these were a series of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 cosmetic items that released in Brawlhalla in 2019 that basically they all had the common theme of Terminus for one reason or another, and we'll look more at that. Darkheart, there are of course Darkheart skins, legend skins, and weapon skins, and also there are some battle pass items that we've seen that seem to show us a little more about Darkheart as well. And then there are some tweets from by Brawlhalla that I want to kind of like show off here. Dang it! I was gonna set things up. I forgot to set things up so that I could just move from one window to another with the tweets, but I'll figure it out as we go along. So, Terminus. This is let's talk about Terminus. So I'm basically gonna go over everything we know about Terminus, Darkheart, and Loki one at a time. So, Terminus, interdimensional prison, source of Darkheart, Loki's domain. So what do we know about Terminus? Everything we know about everything official that we know about Terminus comes from the Escape from Terminus patch. So it has these items here. We have Petra's lore. We have another sort of like, not really a patch note, but more of like talking about a Brawl of the Week kind of thing. And we have Red Raptor's lore, as well as some tweets that kind of mention it as well. So let's talk about the Escape from Terminus patch, patch 3.35, right? So if you go to, so anything that's like red and underlined, that's a link. I'm going to share the slideshow in the description below. But basically, if you click on that link, that takes you to the actual patch notes of that particular patch. And it says, Loki has been capturing legends before they reach Brawlhalla and locking them in a timeless vault. Shin Sakai Koji, the newest epic skin, alongside Mythic Hero Val and Prize Fighter Cross, combat their way through Terminus to escape from Loki's grasp, a new KO effect. That is the sentence that binds all 4 of these cosmetic items together. All right, that's the story, that's the narrative behind these 4 items that we're seeing here. All right, so so let's go over each of the Terminus cosmetics real quick. Shin Sakai Koji, and I have the Brawlhalla description for each one. Cutting a laser-edged swath through the streets of Terminus, even if it takes eons. So kind of making this Koji kind of sound like a sort of like a rebel trying to like escape this bad area, this terrible like area, the streets or whatever. So Demon Killer and Power Surge are the name of his weapons. And yeah, just an epic skin. If you're familiar with Brawlhalla, you know what an epic skin entails basically. So Mythic Hero Val, slaying specters and demons alongside her samurai friend. Original model or throwback? Very interesting comment there. Sinister Strike and Betrayal are the names of those weapons. And then also on the announcement page for the patch, Loki has trapped Mystic Hero Val in Terminus alongside Shin Sakai Koji. So Shin Sakai Koji and Mythic Hero Val are Loki's prisoners in Terminus. So what I'm wondering, something in bold here on this page is something kind of more like what my thoughts are. Could this be the original Val? Because when you read Val's lore, she is Val Project 701. Now, the number could mean many different things. We don't know what the number means, but one possible thing is it could be the 701st iteration of Val. And so the fact that her Brawlhalla description says original model or throwback kind of makes me wonder if Mythic Hero Val is either like, she could be some kind of humanoid, like an elf or something that the Val Project 701 is based off of, or Mythic Hero Val is actually also a robot and was the first version of constructed Val, possibly. Anyway, Prize Fighter Cross is interesting. Reveling in the chaos of Terminus and turning it into his own spectacle. So he might initially be a prisoner, but it seems like he is happy to be here. No contest and ground and pound are his weapons. In the announcement page, locked in Terminus, prizefighter Cross has his own ambitions. So I think one thing to keep in mind here also is, but yeah. So we have here this this tweet where like Brawlhalla released a bunch of tweets that sort of teased these Terminus items back in 2019, and what they said here is escaping from Terminus might be the least of their problems. This is cosmetic number 4. Every teaser for this patch has been for a different cosmetic item, all revealed, whatever. And we can see prizefighter Cross's fists and everything. All right. So, oops. Oh my gosh. What have I done? Full screen. There we go. Okay, that's what I want. Cool. So yeah, and I think another thing that's interesting is if this is the cross that we know, if this is the cross that we know, then if you remember Cross's lore, so Cross made a deal with the devil in the two-sided coin. You can see him hold it in that skin, right, which he normally does. The deal was that he would be dragged down to hell after his last battle. And so if Cross maybe was on his way to Valhalla and then he was like snatched away into Terminus, he I guess, being a prize fighter, he found a way to like keep fighting basically. And he wants to keep fighting. He wants to continue to like, so being like a prize fighter in like a wrestling league or something would be ideal for him because he would keep fighting over and over again. So that's why he probably seems less of a prisoner, because this is his ideal condition. He won't have to go to where the devil, the two-sided coin devil wants to go. He gets to be where he wants to be. Anyway, food for thought there. And also finally we have Loki's grasp KO effect. So snatched at the last moment and dragged into the timeless vaults of Terminus. Loki has been capturing legends before they reach Valhalla, before they can reach Valhalla before Ragnarok, trapping them in Terminus, an endless prison. It's another description of that. And also, it has been teased in this tweet here. So sometimes it takes eons to escape from Terminus. So so there's that. And I'll have a little more to say about another tweet later on. And then also this patch revealed the new Brawl of the Week, Ghost in the Terminus, kind of a riff off of the phrase Ghost in the Shell. And basically, it says phase in and out of visibility as you fight for your escape from Loki's prison. Queue up against 2 other players in a 3-minute FFA game with 300% damage, score 2 points for KOing an enemy, lose 1 point for being KO'd, all while you and your opponents go invisible when not using powers. So this is the only case where we hear about like people going invisible under certain conditions, like in Terminus. And so I think there's something to be said about like, I guess maybe there's something about later on, I'll show evidence of how it describes that when you play Ghost in the Terminus, you're playing it in Loki's interdimensional citadel, whether that's all of Terminus or just a building in Terminus. There's something about it where like you can, I guess under certain conditions, you can go invisible. I don't know. But it's a cool idea, and maybe I shouldn't think too deeply into it because you don't know much about that particular aspect. So that's everything from the from patch 3.35. Let's talk about Petra's lore. And we're going to go back to various lore things. I've highlighted the parts that talk about Terminus specifically. All right. So here in Petra's lore, we have the first real references to Darkheart and Terminus in the lore in general. Petra was released, a while after the Terminus cosmetics came. I think she released like later in 2019 or something. Whereas the Terminus patch came out in like January of 2019, something like that. I think. I had the date somewhere else. But the point is, we didn't see any mention of Terminus or Darkheart until Petra's lore came around. At least not in the official like lore. We just had the Terminus cosmetics and we were wondering about it. So, what does Petra's lore tell us about Terminus? Heimdall to Odin calls it an interdimensional sinkhole, so it seems like a rather disreputable place. Also, apparently, Bryn was the one who pulled Petra out of Terminus, and that people from Terminus are not, at least from Heimdall's perspective, are not desirable, probably because they're, specifically because Petra is a troublemaker. This seems to be like a place of rabble rousers or whatever. To most, Terminus is a dystopian prison realm where frighteningly violent and dangerous undesirables are banished. To Petra, Terminus is home. I think that's a fantastic description of what Terminus is like as a place. And that also explains why Heimdall feels that way and kind of complained to Odin about Petra's inclusion in the Einherjar of in the ranks of Valhalla. And then also, this interesting tidbit, before Terminus was a prison, it was a mine. The only source in the multiverse of the cryptic ore called Darkheart. So, notice the multiverse, is real. There is the concept of a multiverse exists in Brawlhalla lore. I don't know if I've ever really noticed that before I started looking into this, which leads which supports Defensive's theory about supports Defensive's theory about the fact that Orion came from a different universe into ours, right? There's a multiverse, and the only source of Darkheart in the entire multiverse is Terminus. The power and danger of Darkheart was so great, the gods folded Terminus into its own dimension and declared it eternally bound, just to quarantine the ore. So that's how Terminus became a prison, basically. Darkheart became, and also how Darkheart became it existed. And it turned out to be so powerful and so dangerous that the gods, it doesn't specify which god specifically, but just could be Norse, could be Greek, could be Egyptian, could be whatever. But whatever, any gods who are aware of Darkheart use their powers to fold Terminus into its own dimension, separate from any other dimension, basically. And Darkheart became the ultimate cosmic contraband. So. And also, Petra's Brawlhalla description says, if an interdimensional prison couldn't hold her, nothing will. Now let's talk briefly about the breakout of the Terminus weekly rotation news. This was a different, not necessarily a patch. It was more like a, Ghost in the Terminus became Brawl of the Week again. And they, this is just another article on the little news article on the Brawlhalla website. Here's what it says. Prove you can escape the god of mischief. Get ready for Ghost in the Terminus for Brawl of the Week. Phase in and out of invisibility to escape from Loki's interdimensional citadel in this high-stakes free-for-all game mode. It's not clear whether citadel refers to a building in Terminus or whether it's just Terminus in general. We don't know. It's probably, and it's likely the devs haven't thought that far into it either. So now, let's talk about Red Raptor's lore and what it says about Terminus. So, I think but yeah. So, Petra introduced us to Terminus and Darkheart. And Red Raptor's lore further develops our understanding of Darkheart and Terminus and also Loki especially. We'll go more into Darkheart and Loki later. But, Red Raptor's lore doesn't talk a lot about Terminus, really, but I highlight this section. How do I point here? I highlight that section there in his lore, which says, so there's this powerful kaiju powered by a mysterious force called Darkheart. This kaiju destroyed Red Raptor's team and imprisoned the spirits of the pilots. Okay? That's the Terminus reference there. I'm assuming that is Terminus because the monsters that invaded Red Raptor's planet were at the command of Loki, as it says earlier in Red Raptor's lore. And also, at the end, it says that Petra is a clue in Red Raptor's new mission. In Valhalla, he will hunt down this Loki, unravel the mystery of Darkheart, and rescue his lost team one final time. So, and also in the Brawlhalla description, he hoped to see his fallen teammates after a final battle against the Darkheart kaiju, but he hasn't been able to find them in the afterlife. So notice that in Red Raptor's lore, not only did he so he was the last one remaining. He was the last one standing against this giant kaiju. All the mechs are down. All of his friends are gone. His last ditch effort, his last desperate final gambit was to detonate the anti-Darkheart core of his own mech, and to destroying the monsters and himself, leading Red Raptor to his afterlife. But he made another sacrifice. He turned away from the heavenly road that would lead to his ancestors, because some lonely instinct made him accept the Valkyries' offer of Valhalla, which I guess he saw that as an opportunity to find out what happened to his friends, because he didn't see his friends anywhere. He didn't see them in Valhalla. Clearly he didn't see them in that heavenly road to whatever afterlife he was going to normally go to. So his friends, the rest of the Raptor Force, are probably in Terminus. Now let's go over some tweets here. I want to first say, anytime I talk about any of these Brawlhalla tweets, as far as like canonicity goes, I think we should take these with a grain of salt, because we don't know whether the people who write the tweets are the same people who also are in charge of the lore or whatever. There could be just like there is such a thing as dev headcanon. For example, Left Stick Down, one of the devs, especially in the esports team, he has a sort of headcanon that metadev skins are basically a Legends reward for winning the grand tournament, right? There's nothing in the lore that says anything about what the metadev skins are, or it doesn't say like, you know, when Taros won the tournament or when Bryn won the tournament or something like that. That's just kind of Left Stick's like personal like headcanon, and he's a dev. Like I don't think we should think too deeply about all of this, but basically, like, you know, what we should accept as the official lore, we just need to be careful to not jump to conclusions here. But some things we see in some of these tweets could hint at some sort of like, I guess, like general ideas or general understandings within BMG about the role of various aspects of the lore. So anyway, like I said, these tweets are probably not intended to expand the lore. It probably just reflects how BMG sees these things in their lore. Okay, so when BMG was initially teasing these Terminus cosmetics in early 2019, somebody asked, "What the heck is Terminus?" And whoever was in charge of the Brawlhalla Twitter account, it could have been Sloshville at the time, could have been somebody else. The reply was, "Terminus is Loki's prison for people on their way to Valhalla. It's near impossible to escape, but Koji fought his way out of it. It did take a couple thousand years, though." And there's the link for that right there. Also, looks like Cross is helping Loki get more souls for Terminus. So there's that as well. So, Terminus, the TLDR, it is an interdimensional prison. It's been called an interdimensional prison, a timeless vault, a chaotic nexus dimension. It's some kind of dystopian punk prison realm with streets, gangs, and the Darkheart mine. We know that from the descriptions, and especially in Petra's lore. We know that Loki has been capturing legends before they can make it to Valhalla and, you know, imprisoning them in Terminus. We know that Koji, Val, and Cross apparently spent time there. And I'm talking about like the Koji, like we know and play as in Brawlhalla. The Cross we know and play as in Brawlhalla. And the Val, I'm still not entirely sure of, you know, different model or something like that, right? But this is also why I think Koji is probably from the planet of Shinsekai. Red Raptor's home planet is called Shinsekai. I'll go and so Shinsekai Koji, you know, if that's the Koji we know and love in Brawlhalla, then the fact that he's called Shinsekai Koji makes me think that maybe he actually is from Shinsekai. Also, the fact that Red Raptor's lore says that Koji is Red Raptor's mentor. Why Koji, of all people? Is it just because he has experience in Terminus and knows how to get out? And maybe he can, you know, explain how his Red Raptor's friend can get out? Possibly. But also, additionally, maybe they're both native to the planet of Shinsekai. Like I said, Mythic Hero Val could be the original Val, and Val's Project 701, the one that the default skin, could be based off of Mythic Hero Val. Prizefighter Cross has his own ambitions, probably worked for Loki to keep his devilish deal intact after the last battle. Or maybe not so much like intact, but more like, you know, to get out of whatever the devil in the coin has in store for him. Also, we know before it was a prison, it was a Darkheart mine. This is the only source of the cryptic mythic ore in the multiverse. The gods, fearing its power, quarantined the Darkheart into its own dimension. And I know it's not explicitly said, but in many things in Brawlhalla lore, if something is like all but confirmed, if you can like practically say like this is true, except for the fact that it's not like outright said, it's probably true. The devs are very careful about how they write the lore, and if they put in a little hint to something, it's on purpose. All right. So Red Raptor's friends, I'm assuming, are currently imprisoned in Terminus. So that's all we know about Terminus. Let's talk about the mysterious material known as Darkheart. All right. So what do we know about Darkheart? Where do we find the information about it? So we got Petra's lore, Red Raptor's lore. We of course have the Darkheart cosmetic items, which includes 4 legend skins, and then we also have a weapon set, and we have some battle pass items, kind of for one of them. So in season 1 we have the avatars and Obaki Petra, and then season 4. This one's a bit shaky, but the Octavius Mordex skin, I'll go into that, and then a Brawlhalla tweet. Okay, so what does Petra's lore tell us about the Darkheart? The fact that Darkheart is only found in Terminus, and that its power is so great the gods essentially quarantined it into its own dimension, and that it's probably a very highly sought after in the galactic or universal or multi-universal, the cosmic black market, or whatever, because it says Darkheart became the ultimate cosmic contraband, black market, whatever kind of thing, right? Red Raptor's lore tells us a little more about Darkheart. Apparently, so it specifically says that the most powerful kaiju, the one that pretty much demolished Red Raptor's team, and the one that Red Raptor himself demolished with the Garuda's core, that particular kaiju was superpowered by a mysterious force called Darkheart. What else could it be but the Darkheart we know and love, right? Destroyed Red Raptor's team, leading to the imprisonment of his friends. So maybe there's something about the Darkheart substance, or something about the monsters themselves that, or maybe Loki was just waiting there, just ready to snatch up the ones defeated by the Darkheart monsters. But also, it's very interesting. It says that Red Raptor detonated the anti-Darkheart core of his own mech, which this is the first time we've ever heard of there being anti-Darkheart material. We've never heard of anything like that before Red Raptor's lore. So apparently, the people of Shen Sakai, the people of the planet Shen Sakai, were able to develop some kind of material that was antithetical to Darkheart. And typo there with anti-Darkheart. Sorry about that. And also, I wanted to point out that in Red Raptor's mind, in Daisen Doro's mind, Loki and Darkheart are connected. All right, because Koji is his mentor, Vector's an ally. Petra is a clue in Red Raptor's new mission, and that new mission is that while he's in Brawlhalla, he will hunt down this Loki person, unravel the mystery of Darkheart, and rescue his lost team one final time. So we have a reference to Loki, we have a reference to Darkheart, and we have a reference to Terminus, all in one sentence. So, in Red Raptor's mind, all of those things are connected. Let's talk about these cosmetic items and stuff. So let's talk about the skins first. So we got Darkheart Artemis, the ultimate weapon. Dark Pulse and Heartbleed are the names of her weapons. And also in Brawlhalla, there's a description that says Darkheart soul blazes with Artemis's expression. So like the visor, like her face, like kind of like blazes or glows a bit when she like attacks or something like that with this particular skin, right? Darkheart Petra, the darkness tried to take over, but now she's in control. I want you to take note of that. Petra is in control of Darkheart in the Darkheart Petra skin. Gloom and Doom and Eternal Nightfall are her weapons. I also want to point out that basically in every other Darkheart skin we've come across, we've seen horns, extra eyes, like these kind of like sort of monstrous transformations, changes to the body, to armor, things like that. But we do not see that with Darkheart Petra. Honestly, Darkheart Petra's design is rather different from the other Darkheart skins, right? There's nothing really like particular. It's not as angular, like her outfit, like her body apart from her hair is not as like angular and pointy as you know. There's a lot more like soft and like, you know, kind of like hard, like round smooth shapes. And there doesn't, I don't see corruption here. I see more like, you know, a change in power, almost kind of like a Super Saiyan transformation type thing. That's kind of more what I see with the Darkheart Petra thing. So I think it's very interesting, and I'd like to think that that's by design. With Darkheart Zariel, falling from grace but not going down without a fight. So you can see Zariel's halo kind of turn into sort of like horns with the shattered halo. We have Halo Breakers and Despair as the weapons. Fallen Raptor, one of the default skins that, one of the original 3 skins that came with Red Raptor's release. Loki sees immense potential in this soul. So I think it's interesting to say, so this skin doesn't say Darkheart Red Raptor. It says Fallen Raptor. Now, you could make the argument that, you know, maybe this skin is not canon, and this could be what if Red Raptor succumbed to Darkheart influence. You could say that, but honestly, and I mean, a lot of skins are more what if kind of things as well. Like, there's nothing in Artemis or Zariel's lore that talks about Darkheart. There doesn't seem to be, and there's nowhere in the lore do we see a direct connection between Artemis and Darkheart or Zariel and Darkheart necessarily. But we do have a connection with Red Raptor's friends and Terminus. So I'd like to think, you know, Corrupted Steps and Darkheart Geode are the weapons names here. I'd like to think that Fallen Raptor is essentially what maybe one of Red Raptor's friends looks like in Terminus, or what one of his friends would look like if they were corrupted, right? So also, I know some people have pointed this out before in conversations, but Petra's lore mentions something about control of the raptor pits, all right, with, you know, capital R, capital P. But now, Petra was released probably before BMG were even thinking about creating Red Raptor, right? Like, we have the Last Sentai reference in Munen's lore, but I kind of doubt that Raptor Pits was... I kind of doubt that when the lore team wrote Raptor Pits in Petra's lore, I don't think they had Red Raptor in mind. I don't think there's too much of a gap between 2019 and 2023 for that. They were probably thinking of just like, you know, like Jurassic Park raptors, kind of like, you know, like chicken fighting, or like, you know, robot battle or something like that. Just like actual like raptors, like bird raptors or dinosaur raptors, like fighting each other in these pits or whatever, right? Or like people trying to survive in like these monster pits or whatever. But it could be that BMG decided to name that maybe the raptor in part of Red Raptor's name could have been partially inspired by the fact that there are raptor pits mentioned in Petra's lore. Maybe they took that raptor part from Petra's lore and decided it worked for their concept of Red Raptor. It could be one, you know, it could go either way. There's a lot of speculation here, obviously, but that's what theories are for, right? I also wanted to point out, of course, the Darkheart Spire podium, rising to the top by plunging into darkness. As far as I can tell, this is just pure Darkheart, you know, taken directly from the quarry in Terminus or something. So moving on to the Darkheart weapon set here, I'm gonna kind of, you know, blaze through these. The sword with the Darkheart, I stab at thee. So Darkheart Blade, Darkheart Crusher, we know not from whence it came, but in the quiet hours it whispers of smashing. Darkheart Blasters, they utter the old names, which mortal minds hear only as pew pew pew. Darkheart Spine, seething malice from a long forgotten place. Darkheart Missile, it's too late to run, the darkness approaches. Darkheart Shredders, every nightmarishly twisted blade has its thorns. Darkheart Axe, a wicked axe that knows only darkness. Darkheart's Grasp, nowhere is safe from its reach. Darkheart Longbow, strung with whispers, secrets, and lies. Darkheart Reaper, the harvest has begun. Darkheart Tower, corruption is a blast. Darkheart Orb, the darkness consumes all. Darkheart Claymore, surging with slashes filled with nightmares. And finally, Darkheart Stompers, the darkness rapidly approaches. I don't think we necessarily get a lot of like really new revelations here necessarily. There's just kind of a lot of sort of like, you know, darkness and lies and, you know, secrets and powers, whispers, whatever. The old names could refer to literally anything, right? You know, nightmares, all this kind of like, you know, dark, like, you know, emo stuff, right? Which is, I mean, that's kind of in line with what we hear about, like, you know, Darkheart and stuff, right? But I think it's so I don't think there's a lot to say about like what we get from the Darkheart weapons. I did want to kind of point out, if you're interested, I made this slide here to visually compare the weapons from Darkheart skins and the actual Darkheart weapon skins, right? Because the weapon skins seem to just be straight up made out of Darkheart. There's like, you know, like energy cores in them and stuff glowing through the stone and all of that. And you also see that with especially Darkheart Artemis as well, just kind of a more jagged, maybe there's more Darkheart energy peeking out there, but everything else is kind of like more like constructed and things like that. Although the Fallen Raptor orb does have like, you know, like the exposed core and stuff like that. I don't have a lot to say here, but I think this, you know, this could be like, you know, sort of like helpful information as well. It's notable that the only really like pointy, spiky things about Darkheart Petra are her hair and her weapons. That's pretty much it. So, and I mean, her weapons are based on Darkheart. You see like refined Darkheart crystals, also the Darkheart on her weapons are a darker shade as well. Maybe that could be indicative of like being actually a bit refined. Like if you compared the colors of like on her gauntlets and her orb compared to all the other dark red Darkheart colors everywhere else, it's darker. It seems like it's maybe more work has been put on that. So like more controlled. It doesn't like, it's not as bright. Like a brighter color usually indicates like more of an outburst of emotion, right? But like something that's darker, it's usually like more subdued in this case. Anyway, you know, a little bit of color theory mixed in there. Why not? Battle Pass items. So in Season 1, which was the sort of like Japanese, like the yokai, Japanese demon kind of thing, the focus, of course, was on Hattori, Akuma no Kogo Hattori. But what's really interesting is that they had Obaki Petra. I'm sorry I didn't include an image of Obaki Petra in here. But so the progression skin of Obaki Petra and her design, as well as that of a few avatars, they seem to feature Darkheart. So we have the Darkheart Crystal avatar, we have the Darkheart Takeover avatar, and the Eye of the Darkheart avatar. I wanted to point out the appearance of claws, horns, and eyes on those infected with Darkheart. That Darkheart Takeover, that seems to be Obaki Petra's claw, right? And if you look at the skin, like levels 1, 2, and 3 of Obaki Petra, you see that that's very much a Darkheart takeover. Like she looks to have been like, you know, corrupted and taken over. She gets, you know, all these like claws and horns, and she has this sort of skeletal look to her and everything. And then also like and you just kind of like, you don't see as many like extra eyes per se, but like that seems to be another like, the fact that this is called Eye of the Darkheart, and you also see like extra eyes in some of the other skins in the Battle Pass Season 1, I think that's kind of telling. Anyway, and then finally, there is a tweet that I wanted to point out that teased more the progression skin from Battle Pass Season 4. And that tweet says, Artemis's theory on Asgard's infection is starting to look more correct each day. Has anyone checked on Mordex lately? To kind of show you what the tweet actually looks like, here's what it is. It kind of has this GIF that shows this really, like, at the time, this was really weird, almost like Eldritch in a way. Like, we were just like, what the heck is going on? You can see, yeah, again, Artemis's theory on Asgard's infection is starting to look more correct every day. And that's a reference to, in Artemis's lore, towards the end when it talks about Orion, it says that Artemis, like, as Orion gains more popularity in Valhalla, Artemis wonders if Asgard might be too infected to save. Which is just real head scratcher of a term, right? And you know, again, the lore is written very carefully in Brawlhalla. That's not an accident. they either did that to just like mess with us, or maybe they had another plan at the time. They're definitely running with it, you know, moving forward. But so the progression skin in season 4 in Battle Plan season 4 was Octavius Mordex. Starts off with seeing Octavius Mordex in his human form, and then becoming more and more like a corrupted werewolf. We see extra eyes on his weapons there. And I was kind of wondering, like, the fact that this is talking about infection, and the only thing that we are aware of in Brawlhalla lore that, like, infects people with, like, more power is Darkheart. And so that kind of made me wonder, so wait, is this a connection? Is this tweet, this little reference about, like, you know, Mordex and infection and Artemis, is this a connection we need to be able to prove that Darkheart is the infection? I'd like to think so, but I don't think it's enough proof. We see some similarities with Darkheart infection, but Mordex is also a character that takes he's kind of like the let's see what I don't know, he's kind of like the Master Sword. He's kind of like a magical sword that takes in like any power that it absorbs, right? It's the Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom, or you know, or other swords that just like absorb things. Like, you know, if it gets poison on it, then it becomes poisonous itself. Mordex is kind of like that as a character, because he just gets all kinds of power that he wants, right? He steals a tome of rituals here, steals a magical scythe there, and that kind of thing. It's not exactly clear what corrupted him, and there's references to like a blood moon in the weapon names as well. And so this might not actually be Darkheart, but I wanted to kind of point it out anyway as something kind of like, you know, infection, and the fact that BMG kind of like mentioned infection, like Artemis's theory on Asgard's infection. It just says it's starting to look more correct each day. It doesn't say that it is more correct each day. It's starting to look like it. Maybe in Artemis's eye, if she were to see this, she'd be like, oh no, another problem in Asgard, or something like that. But, you know, this could be a clue that the infection Artemis is worried about is Darkheart, but this alone, by itself, doesn't really prove anything. It's not solid evidence, but it's an interesting little thing that I wanted to kind of bring up. So, TLDR for Darkheart. It is a mythic cryptic ore only found in Terminus, powerful and dangerous. It seems to provide raw strength and power in exchange for losing control over yourself, basically. So power for control, you know, classic trope where you get more power and lose control. It's also very much associated with darkness, malice, corruption, things like that, especially in the descriptions of the Darkheart weapon set. Those corrupted by Darkheart seem to consistently feature horns, claws, and even extra eyes, as you can see in some of the Darkheart skins. But Darkheart Petra seems to show Petra in control of Darkheart. Darkheart doesn't control her, she controls Darkheart. And that's probably one of the things that makes her special. Not just the fact that she's associated with Darkheart in general, it's the fact that Petra is capable of gaining the benefits of Darkheart without the cost of control normally associated with it. We know it is possible to create a substance antithetical to Darkheart, and that Red Raptor's default orb is called Garuda's core. That core is an anti-Darkheart core. So there's that. There was that offhand BMG comment associating. Okay, well, I shouldn't say it's not associating Darkheart with infection. It's just kind of like possibly connect. You know, it's just a comment about infection and about Mordex, really. So I don't want to draw too much of a line there. Now let's talk about Loki, right? I put a question mark there because, like, Terminus is called Loki's prison, so I kind of assume Loki is like the ruler of Terminus, but he's never called Terminus's ruler, is it? But he pretty much is. Anyway, I do want to give a brief disclaimer. This might be obvious to some of you, I know, but like sometimes when we talk about Loki, it's very easy to assume. It's very easy to picture Marvel Loki, the one, you know, with the big, like, you know, big gold horn helmet, or you know, green cape, and, you know, things like that, right? And honestly, this is the most popular iteration of Loki in pop culture, right? Marvel comics and movies. I love this character. This particular series, I think is you know, my wife and I loved it when we watched it and watched the first season last year. And Marvel's version of Loki is obviously based on original Norse myth, but we need to be careful not to mix up Marvel's original ideas with classic mythology. All right, so I know I have this slide talking about Marvel's Loki, but I just wanted to kind of like, I put this slide in here to show that we're stepping away from that version of Loki. We're sticking with, for the purposes of this theory, we're ignoring this iteration. All right, we're focusing entirely on what we see in original Norse myth and Brawlhalla lore. Okay, just wanted to get that out. Having said that, what do we know about Loki? Well, there's something in Olgrim's lore and something in Red Raptor's lore, and Loki was already brought up in some Brawlhalla tweets I mentioned, so I'll bring those up briefly. So the Loki reference in Olgrim's lore goes like this: thanks to Loki and his gambling ways, other upstart dwarves were chosen to forge Thor's hammer. Even though they botched the handle, they were still celebrated and stole the sons of Ivaldi's, Olgrim's people. They stole the sun's place of prestige. So was born a bitter rivalry. Lasted for centuries. Both sides constantly trying to outdo the other. But when the comet came crashing down, it was Olgrim and his brothers Olgrim, Ivaldi's son, and his brothers that the gods turned to once again. So it all started with Loki and his gambling ways. Now, this description here of, like, you know, Loki and his gambling ways, other upstart dwarves were chosen to forge Mjolnir. They botched the handle. They made the handle too short. They still got prestige for crafting Mjolnir. All of this is consistent with an actual Norse myth, the story of Brokkr and Sindri. Brokkr, the story of Brokkr and Sindri. I really love this website here, Norse Mythology for Smart People. It gives a good, like, kind of like brief, you know, synopsis of various stories, and gives, you know, some references and things like that. But essentially, the idea is that Loki, the trickster in Norse myth, you know, he was in a mischievous mood. He cut off the gorgeous golden hair of Sif, the wife of Thor. So Sif's hair was cut by Loki. Thor, you know, was enraged that his wife is treated this way, and also Thor just had a quick temper in general. He threatened to break every bone in Loki's body. Loki pleaded with Thor to let him go. You know, Loki said, "No, wait. Let's go down to the realm of the dwarves and see if we can get those people. See if we can get the dwarves to craft a new head of hair for Sif. You know, a new head of golden hair for Sif." And Thor's like, "Okay, all right, I'll allow it. Go ahead, make some new hair for Sif. Make this right." And so, you know, of course, Loki continuing to scheme. He went down there. He talked to the sons of Ivaldi. And the sons of Ivaldi, not only forged new hair for Sif, but they also forged a couple other marvels and things like that. The best of, you know, they forged a really awesome ship, and they also forged Gungnir, which is Odin's spear. After this, Loki was overcome by an urge to stay in the caves, and kind of like he decided he wanted to choose violence again, and so he approached Brokkr and Sindri. And he sort of taunted them, saying, I'm sure you guys can never forge anything as great as, you know, this hair and this boat and this spear. There's no way. He even bet his own head on the fact that they couldn't do it. And so Brokkr and Sindri were like, sure, you know, all right, bet. And so, you know, they started working, and I guess Loki bet his own head on this, and he was so sure about it because he turned himself into a fly. And it says fly here, but it said he stung Sindri's hand. And so when Sindri pulled his creation out of the fire, it was a living boar with golden hair. like sort of like botching the golden hair thing, right? Sindri then set another piece of gold in the fire as Brocker worked the bellows. The fly bit Brocker in the neck, and Sindri drew out a magnificent ring. From this ring, every 9th night fall 8 new golden rings of equal weight. And Sindri then put iron on the hearth and told Broker that for this next working, they must be especially meticulous, for a mistake could be more costly than the... So they botched... So Loki, as a fly, made them mess up their previous two, like, crafts. They couldn't craft golden hair, but they made this magnificent boar, Golan Bursty. They couldn't craft a boat, but they made this really awesome ring that made you more rich. And so they're like, okay, we need to not mess this up. And so Loki stung Broker's eyelid, kind of preventing Broker from properly seeing his work. And so Sindri produced a hammer of unsurpassed quality that never missed its mark, would boomerang back to its owner after being thrown. But the one flaw is the hammer, the handle was too short. And he's like, this almost ruined it. You know, this fly almost ruined this masterpiece. But nevertheless, they thought, these are still really, really good items. We'll present them to Asgard and claim the wages that are due to them. And then, yeah, Loki made it to the halls of the gods before the dwarves did, and presented. Well, actually, no. Presented the marvels he had acquired. To Thor, he gave Sif's new hair and the hammer Mjolnir. To Odin went the ring, Darupnir, and the spear Gungnir. And Frey got the boar and the boat. As grateful as the gods were, especially Thor with Mjolnir, because they knew Mjolnir would be helpful against the giants, the gods nevertheless concluded that Loki still owed the dwarves his head, because the dwarves still, they still believe that the dwarves made good on their word. They made beautiful things. But Loki is like, and so meaning that Loki would lose, right? And so Loki is like, and so the dwarves started approaching Loki like, all right, Loki, you're ready to the bargain. Here we go. They approached Loki with knives and everything, and Loki said, no, wait, no. I bet you my head, but not my neck. You can't do anything to my neck, just my head. And basically that means that you can't sever someone's head without affecting the neck. And so basically with that, Broker and Sindri just said, you know what? We'll just sew your mouth shut and go back to our forge. I think that's an awesome story. I love that story. And so that original Norse myth story is the basis for this reference here in Ulgrim's lore. Thanks to Loki and his gambling ways, making a little trouble and everything. That's how Mjolnir got a shorter handle until Ulgrim fixed it, and now Thor in Brawlhalla has a longer handle for Mjolnir. But basically, it's Loki's fault that there's this rivalry between Ulgrim and the Sons of Ivaldi and these dwarven upstarts. Between the Sons of Ivaldi and the dwarven upstarts. It's Loki's fault, basically. In Red Raptor's lore, Loki is the mastermind behind the kaiju attacks. And also Shinsekai were apparently aware of this mastermind named Loki. Maybe they weren't aware of Norse mythology per se, but they knew that this mastermind named Loki was behind these attacks. And once again, Red Raptor's mission, hunt down Loki, unravel the mystery of Darkheart, and rescue his lost team one final time. And of course, just kind of pointing out some of these tweets that I mentioned before. Terminus is Loki's prison. Cross is helping Loki get more souls for Terminus because, more souls for Terminus, and also Cross gets more people to fight against and all that, right? And also, in this tweet, in this sort of reply here, it's pointed out that, I'll talk about this, I'll talk about what Expired said here, but Brawlhalla responded to Expired saying, anyone who uses Loki's Grasp KO effect is helping Loki. Maybe Cross more so than others, though. So, according to BMG, if you're using the Loki's Grasp KO effect, you are helping Loki trap souls in Terminus. I don't have necessarily a lore explanation for that, but that's the story, the narrative behind the Loki's grasp KO effect. That's why when someone gets KO'd and you see like a soul rising out and then a hand grabbing, that's what it is. Anyway, the TLDR on Loki, he is a trickster, reference to the Brocker and Sindri story in Ogham's lore. He is a shadowy mastermind who can commanded giant beasts against the planet Shensekai. Darkheart-powered kaiju led to the imprisonment of Red Raptor's friends. And since the Brawlhalla versions of Odin and Thor are honestly pretty close to classic Norse myth, we can assume that the Brawlhalla version of Loki is also pretty close to Norse myth up to a point. Because in Norse myth, Loki ends up being chained up in, I think, Helheim. And he's sort of like chained to a rock and tormented by snakes, by like a poisonous snake is like dripping venom on him. In the Brawlhalla universe, Loki is in Terminus. So Terminus and Darkheart, that doesn't seem to be like... It seems like Loki sort of is in charge of Terminus, or he kind of like took over Terminus as its ruler or something. So it doesn't sound like he's in the same situation as his North myth counterpart. So that is a departure from classic myth, but that's like the main departure just to keep in mind. But other than that, I think we can assume that the Loki and Brawlhalla lore is essentially this, like, very similar to the Loki in classic myth. So I know I've spent the last hour talking about Terminus, Darkheart, and Loki. Now with all that out of the way, I want to talk about theories and speculation. All right. So there's sort of like a few smaller lore theories. I've already talked about my theory about Koji and Val and whatever. I'll go more into like what I think Loki might be plotting, and also what does this all have to do with Orion? Why am I talking about all of this in an Orion theory video? You might have already guessed, but we'll bring it all together for the final Orion theory in a little bit. So I wanted to briefly go over expired speculation. So we have a lore book club, a Discord server, and shortly after the Terminus cosmetics were released, Expired, kind of wrote this message, and the entire Discord message is in italics below. Just kind of like his their speculation, basically. So yeah, they're all lore related, which could mean they're all canon, which is interesting. Second of all, their designs are all different. None of them follow a theme other than just Terminus, because remember, these Terminus, the Terminus cosmetics came out long before Petra was released. So we had no idea what Terminus was until beyond what these cosmetics told us. Third of all, Val and Koji became friends during Terminus, and then cosmetic-specific information. Val's skin is possibly based off a concept from original design. This opens up a new level of, does that mean some concepts are canon? Why is it mythic hero? She's not got anything in her lore about being a hero, more a villain in relation to Ada. The MBFC logo is on Val and her gauntlets. Mythic Hero Val, we see a logo. It's not the MBFC logo, but it's some kind of it's a logo that's kind of similar, but it's a bit different. Koji's sword, Demon Killer, leads us to assume that in this world demons exist, as well as demons such as Cross's demons. New level of interest because the first mention of demons, unseen demons that are constantly there doing demon stuff. Koji's signatures got valified for some reason, cyberpunk, whatever. This means Koji being trapped in Terminus from his death to when Val got there. Now that we know that Koji is possibly from Shensekai, it's probably more likely that Koji just kind of like got his stuff from Shensekai, basically. Koji's flavor text implies that Terminus is more than just a prison and possibly a city that's also a prison. Who else has been stuck there? Where's Terminus in relation to the 9 Norse worlds? Because there was a lot of discussion about that a number of years ago in Brawlhalla lore. Cross turned Terminus into his own spectacle. Is that because he's a demon of his own? I think it's more of a spectacle because he helps Loki bring in more people for him to fight against, basically. For Cross brings in more people to Terminus, and Cross gets to fight those people, basically. Are Cross and Koji Val on a different side of this place? Does Cross work with Loki? I can't see him working for Loki. I could see him working for Loki, though, because he would have something to gain by helping Loki get more people, and that gives him more fights to do, right? Cross has BCX on his gauntlets. Is BCX in Terminus. Cross has his own has his demon icon, like his coin on him, the demon icon on him, and his gauntlets. We know the hand in the KO effect is Loki. Does this mean that Loki has been banished somewhere? Like, was he banished to Terminus and he made it his own place? We're not sure. That's possible, honestly. Maybe the reason Loki made Terminus his domain is that he was banished there in the first place. The chains in his arm are similar to Krampus Cross's chains, so or whatever. So that was initial speculation. I think Expired did a good job of talking about what the lore discussion was at the time of the Terminus. When all we had were the Terminus cosmetics. Petra's power over Darkheart. So base Petra is only partially corrupted, just her arm, right? And even then, she seems to have pretty good control over that, right? Decently, at least. He was later saved by Bryn. Brawlhalla said on Twitter and in the Brawlhalla description that Petra has the capacity to control Darkheart instead of being taken over by it. So Terminus couldn't control her. Now she controls Darkheart. So this was teasing Petra specifically. So perhaps anyone more fully corrupted by Darkheart couldn't really be saved by Valkyries, maybe, because Heimdall complained to Odin about Petra, being brought to Valhalla, but it turned out Petra is able to control Darkheart, so it didn't become that much of a problem. So my speculation is that Loki is gathering warriors in Terminus, just like Odin is gathering warriors in Valhalla. But Loki is corrupting them with Darkheart, especially the ones he sees great potential in, Fallen Raptor, perhaps to prepare them for a final confrontation with Asgard. Perhaps this will be involved. Perhaps Loki will let people will find a way to let everything in Terminus loose onto Asgard, and that will be like Ragnarok, basically. Koji's true origin. So Red Raptor is from the planet Shinsekai, which is it sounds similar to Shinsekai Koji. Shinsekai in Japanese means new world. So the theory is that Shinsekai Koji is, maybe not just a guy named Koji native to Shinsekai, but like the Koji, and that Koji is native to Shinsekai, and that when he was captured and taken to Terminus, possibly because of the kaiju. Actually, no, it's because of the demons and everything, right? Like at the end of Koji's lore, he was captured by it wasn't by demon. Like he was basically killed by the Emperor's guards, 3,000 guards, and then maybe on his way to Valhalla, Loki was able to grasp Koji and keep him trapped in Terminus, and then Koji referred to himself as Shinsekai Koji to kind of refer to his new world Terminus and his old home. Also, because of a certain Twitter reply from the Brawlhalla Twitter account, it sounds like this Koji is the same one as the one we know in the game. Koji fought his way out. It did take a couple thousand years. So, there we go. Val's true origin. They're talking about this already. Mythic hero Val is described in Brawlhalla as either an original model or a throwback. And so we know, and so maybe Odin couldn't get original Val, so they took this model instead for whatever reason. Also, Mythic hero Val could just be the first model of Val. Maybe not just an actual flesh and blood hero, but just the first model. Project 1 instead of Project 701 or something like that. Right? Now, where did Darkheart come from? It just, as far as we know, it just sort of appeared there, right? Now, if we take the idea that Loki was imprisoned, it was banished to Terminus, right? In Norse myth, Loki has to deal with poisonous venom from a snake. I have a link to a Norse mythology for smart people. You can read it's actually Loki being imprisoned and kind of being chained to a rock and dealing with the torment of snake venom. Basically, the story is that while he's there, his daughter or one of his children has a bowl, helps to ease his pain by having a bowl that catches the snake venom that's dripping down so it doesn't hit Loki. But then the bowl fills up, and so then she has to take the bowl away and dump the venom somewhere. And while she's away, some venom is going to drop onto Loki in the meantime, in the interim. And so Loki kind of like, you know, shaking in pain. That's their explanation. That's the Norse myth explanation for earthquakes. Kind of cool, kind of fun. Anyway, but yeah, it could be, you know, Darkheart comes from some kind of quarry, some kind of mineral rock substance, right? That doesn't mean a snake's venom couldn't be involved, but at the very least, even if a snake is not involved at all with Darkheart, I've been talking for a lot longer than I thought I would. At the very least, perhaps Darkheart is just kind of considered a poison that infects Loki and other people, and that, you know, again, Terminus is its own dimension to quarantine the ore, so, you know, people could see it as like a corruption, a virus, an infection, a poison. Anyway, also, yeah, I put Jormungandr here because I don't know. I don't think this makes a lot of sense. But like the snake that the cosmic snake we're aware of is the serpent that eats its own tail, right? So I don't know. Maybe Darkheart's gonna. I have nothing to support that. It's just kind of a wild, wacky kind of thing. Okay, you waited long enough, and now for the final theory. This is where Orion comes in. I'm presenting the theory that Orion is Loki. All right. Let me explain why. Okay. So a little bit of a preamble here. So normally when you're researching something, you don't want to. When you're normally doing research for like an academic or scientific paper, you don't want to make a conclusion before you're done. You don't want to be a victim of confirmation bias, right? Instead, you normally would want to start with an open-ended research question and allow that question to change and kind of like morph and be informed by what you find, right? You want to focus on the facts that you find rather than just find whatever confirms what you want. In other words, you want to find evidence to support a conclusion. Finding evidence to support a conclusion you've already made is not proper research. I wanted to point that out because that's not what we're doing. I'm making a theory here, all right? I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just trying to demonstrate the possibility. I'm trying to, when you're making a theory, you want to show how that theory could be possible, right? And so that's why it looks like if it looks like I'm cherry picking things that confirm this theory, that's why, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show everything that suggests that Orion could be Loki. And also I'm willing to look at anything that shows that Orion could not be Loki. All right? The point of a theory is to prove it wrong. If you can prove it wrong, then good. You're one step closer to the truth. But if you cannot prove the theory wrong, then you have to acknowledge that it's possible. Right? So, that being said, what ideas and connections do we have to support the possibility that Orion and Loki are one and the same? Let's briefly look at Orion's lore here. Now, Orion's lore is intended, it was written specifically to be very enigmatic. It was also written extremely early in Brawlhalla's lifetime, probably back in like 2014, 2015, whatever. It's the perfect soil for theories to grow on, basically, because you can come up with anything. Like defensive theory was fantastic. You can come up with all kinds of things. This just kind of tells us how Orion got here. Came in through a flaming comet. Olgrim made his armor, and none of the legends knows who he is. And there's all these weird little details that are just kind of random that just make him all the more mysterious, because that's his shtick. Orion is a mysterious stranger. That's kind of the point. And over time, as more and more lore has been released over the past, 7-8 years, we've gotten more connections. So, the Artemis's lore was a huge catalyst in defensive theory about Orion being from another dimension, being a harbinger, and being this foreign body that Artemis wants to get rid of, right? So Artemis told us a lot about Orion, that she is essentially Orion's opposite. She is the answer to the enigma that is Orion, and that Orion is the enigma to the answer that is Artemis. Artemis came into being when his name was spoken. Destroying Orion is her main goal, and as he grows in popularity, she wonders if Asgard might be too infected to save. Somehow, inexplicably, Mirage knows Orion. probably by some other name, because she says, what are you calling yourself these days? Orion is considered a metaphysical rule breaker, a rogue soul, and a cosmological cold case by Nyx, because in Nyx's lore, you know, it mentions the Viking, the gangster, and even that Golden Knight as metaphysical rule breakers, rogue souls, and cosmological cold cases. So Nyx considers Orion at least one of these things. Also, Orion is a common frustration for both Artemis and Nyx. Nyx doesn't like Orion. She doesn't like what Orion does, and what Nyx cares about is making sure that people go to their proper afterlife, right? Or that, you know, so there's that. The sons of Ivaldi, including Olgrim, forged Orion's armor. Olgrim always keeps a close eye on him, either out of pride for the craftsmanship of the armor, or out of concern for some reason. Bryn and Val, they make fun of Orion's mysterious cool guy act, because Orion, in his lore, it says that Orion is very popular with most Valkyries. Like, you know, you want to, like, you know, hang out or something, and Orion's just kind of like, you know, kind of a thing, right? Also, Orion's one of the few legends deemed worthy of direct address with Lord Vrax. So, that's what we know from Orion's lore. And I've already talked about everything we know about Darkheart, about Terminus, and about Loki. Considering all of that, could Orion actually be Loki? Here are some various speculative statements. So, if Orion is Loki, if Loki is Orion, it would explain why Odin would care so much about protecting the identity of his adopted son. Olgrim would not mind making armor for Loki because Loki made Olgrim's smith rivals look bad by pestering them, basically. This would be like, you know, Olgrim's way of showing up the smiths and like, hey, I can, you know, contain Orion in this armor or something like that, right? With, again, you know, Loki and the dwarves, that story and everything. It would make sense that Loki would be tentative and aloof upon coming, because if Orion is Loki, that means Orion coming in the comet is Loki coming back to Asgard, right? It would make sense that with Loki coming back, he would be a bit like cautious. He wouldn't want to like draw too much attention to himself. But then over time, you know, he knows this place. He would, you know, becomes popular among fans and Valkyries over time as he kind of like becomes more comfortable in this new identity. Orion came from space in a comet. The fact that Terminus is an interdimensional prison, it would make sense that someone from Terminus to Asgard, like if you took a one-way direct trip from Terminus to Asgard somehow, a comet would make sense. Perhaps the meddling of Loki and the forces of the universe, Darkheart and Terminus, triggered the immune response. Because again, Terminus was intended to like be. Terminus is the only source of Darkheart in the multiverse, okay? And the gods folded Terminus away into its own dimension, so that it wouldn't like corrupt or infect our universe. So maybe if Loki somehow found a way to make Darkheart break through into this universe, the universe would see that as a problem. The universe would see that as an infection. Maybe that triggered the immune response. Loki could be considered some kind of infection, or at least Loki infected by Darkheart could be considered an infection if not taken care of properly. If we accept the infection as Darkheart, there's the connection there. Although that also wouldn't necessarily explain why we don't see any conflict between Artemis and Petra, because in Petra's lore, like if she has Darkheart and Darkheart is the infection, then why don't we hear Artemis having an issue with it? Then again, if something's not in the lore, that doesn't mean it's not there, but it seems like it would be kind of an important detail to put in, right? But I have an explanation for that. Maybe because Petra is in full control of her Darkheart powers, that's not a problem. And also, you know, the whole Darkheart thing would have been Orion/Loki's fault in the first place. And so Artemis wouldn't necessarily have a reason to hate Petra. All right. More speculative statements. Loki has been known to travel between realms. He's been, you know, in that story about the dwarves, he traveled to Svartalfheim, where the dwarves are and everything. Like, he could go around and whatever. In Orion's lore, it says Orion's the only legend seen leaving Asgard from time to time. That would make sense for Loki. The fact that Orion is considered worthy of direct address by Vrax makes sense if this is Loki, because Loki would be used to speaking and acting as royalty, being Odin's adopted son. because other people worthy of direct address by Vrax is like Queen Nye, for example. Yeah. Loki is known as a trickster and just kind of like doing what he wants, essentially, just because. I wouldn't be surprised that Mirage knows him, because Mirage assumed that she would be the weirdest thing in ancient Egypt when she traveled back in time from the 1920s, 1910s, whatever. She was not even close. In 2000 BC, the Nile River Valley was a nexus of magic and living myth beyond the wildest speculations of Mirage's time. Living myth is very vague and could refer to all kinds of things, but Loki could fit in there, right? Like, who knows? Mirage has been surprised to find old friends, enemies, and even a target in the Halls of Glory. We don't know who that target is at all. Maybe Orion Loki could be an old friend, given that her greeting to Orion feels friendly, I guess. Maybe an old enemy or something. We also know that Loki's a shapeshifter as well. So, more statements. The design of Orion's armor has Valkyrie-like designs because an Asgardian, Olgrim, designed it. This is exactly why in defensive theory, this is why defensive in his theory believed that the design of Orion's armor maybe so defensive theorized that Orion was a male Valkyrie from a different universe, right? That maybe in that universe all the Valkyries are male, and Orion was one of them, and that's why Orion's armor looks like has Valkyrie designs. But in my theory, I believe that the design of Orion's armor Orion's armor looks like a Valkyrie because an Asgardian made it. Like, it would make sense for Olgrim to have incorporated Valkyrie-like designs into his armor. Also, quite notably, each of the legends has tags like the Fangwild tag or the Batavian tag or the Pet Owner tag or the Hat Wearer tag or something like that. Orion has the Asgardian tag. So, which I thought was really weird when I first thought. I'm like, Orion crashed into Asgard from out there somewhere. Where is this Asgardian tag coming from? So at first I kind of thought, oh, maybe it's because he's been sort of adopted as an honorary Asgardian because Olgrim made Asgardian armor for him and whatever. But like, if Orion is Loki, he is Asgardian, right? I mean, adopted from Jotunheim, but like Loki himself is considered an Asgardian, right? It would be the perfect cover for assuming Odin has to know who Orion is, right? So if Orion is Loki and Odin knows that Orion is Loki, it would be the perfect cover to treat Orion as one of the Asgardians because he is. That's where Loki would be used to that. It's kind of getting this gold armor would simply be like a second adoption into Asgard. That does beg the question, though, why keep Loki a secret? Loki has come back. Why would Odin want to keep that a secret? To not cause panic? Because others are looking for him? Because Loki has a reputation and people hate him? I don't know. Those are possibilities. But even more strangely, why would Odin want to protect Loki in gold armor if Loki is in charge of Terminus, which is a place that imprisons legends on their way to Valhalla? It's Loki's fault that some of these legends didn't immediately go to Valhalla. Like, it took Koji several thousand years to get from Terminus to Valhalla, to break out of Terminus and get to Valhalla. Why, why would Odin want to help Loki this way? It could be that Odin is unaware of Loki's involvement with Terminus. This could give some credence to the idea that Loki was banished to Terminus, right? And maybe people in Asgard don't know that Loki is the one capturing people and imprisoning them in Terminus. Maybe they're just like, oh, it's like an accident or something, or like there's some entity there or whatever, and that Loki is one of that entity's victims. Loki would want them to believe that, right? He's a trickster. So maybe the Asgardians could see Loki as more of an escaped prisoner, but not know that he's basically the prison's warden or something. I don't know. Valkyries and emissaries of Odin gathered around the smoking crater. Weeks later, the sons of Vivaldi, the same dwarven smiths who had forged Odin's spear... Wait a second. That's a bit different from what I said in that dwarven smith. Wait, no. They did make Odin's spear. That's right. They quietly appeared in Asgard. Not anyone would have the honor of receiving a custom suit of armor from the same dwarves that forged Gungnir, right? Like that's huge. Why would Odin go to such lengths to hire the sons of Ivaldi to make custom golden armor for this random person that crashed in? It would make sense if it was Loki, wouldn't it? Mirage and Odin's lore seem to contain like bits of conversation. Of all the afterlives, you had to run into this one. What are you calling yourself these days? Here, I am called Orion. It seems like that might have been part of the same conversation. Here, I am called Orion, right? Speculation, what if Loki has been tainted by Darkheart and the armor is actually the thing that's keeping him together and contained? So Petra has control over Darkheart, right? Like, we know that. And also now we have Red Raptor with his anti-Darkheart orb. So that cancels each other out. What if the armor is intended to not just conceal Loki's identity, but is also intended to contain the Darkheart corruption, right? Also, maybe kind of like Darth Vader, maybe it also like kind of keeps him like functional. Maybe it allows him to retain his control because of the suit, you know, kind of a thing, right? Because with Darth Vader, without the suit, Darth Vader would like not be able to function like that well. Maybe a similar thing going on here. It would also explain why the armor requires very specific materials, and also why Olgrim might want to keep a close eye on it. One of the materials, we don't know if this is part of Orion's armor, but this is a material that Olgrim is familiar with. Aconite from the Nether Realm could be greenish bluish in color. So if you look at Arcanium Olgrim, the Arcanium Olgrim skin, his lance is called Aconite Lance. All right? So this tells me that Aconite energy is probably this sort of like green-blue, like teal kind of color, right? Green is also in Brawlhalla is often associated with nether or underworld realms and items. So the Hellfire KO effect, Loki's Grass KO effect, Onyx herself, she had like this green energy fueling her beneath the stone. I don't know. Maybe there could be a connection there between like, you know, like Aconite from the Nether Realm, you know, using that to help contain Darkheart. I don't know. In Defensive's Who is Orion video, he theorizes that Orion could be a visitor from another dimension, a parallel universe in which Valkyries are male. He could be visiting to warn everyone as a harbinger about the impending doom of Ragnarok. Now, this, if we accept this theory, that does kind of conflict with my theory, right? Because if my theory is that Orion is Loki coming from Terminus and wanting to, you know, kind of crash down in Asgard or wanting to like escape or something. So why would he want to escape? Like why would he want to like warn or something like that? I don't necessarily have an answer for that. Maybe it could be that maybe something happened in Terminus. Maybe he was kicked out, perhaps. But like over thousands of years, his original idea was to capture legends. But but then something happened where he couldn't do that anymore. I don't know. Also, like I said, those taken over by Darkheart, those corrupted by it, seem to have horns, as I've already said about like Darkheart skins. Orion, like Orion's default skin, his helmet seems to have like little horns on it, right? Maybe longer horns indicate greater corruption and exposure. Maybe he only has small horns because, like maybe it's not just a design thing. Maybe he just actually has smaller horns because the corruption is being contained by his suit. And now finally here, maybe Loki's been corrupted by Darkheart and needs the armor to avoid total corruption. Maybe that makes Odin ashamed to show Loki's return. Because Darkheart corruption physically changes you, so he doesn't look like himself anymore. Again, yeah, I talked about the infection or corruption of Octavius Mordex. Kind of looks like Darkheart, but also could not be. Huge speculation there. Could have been corrupted by some other power. Here's a variation on this whole theory as well. Orion could be his own person, and he could very well be Loki's creation. Maybe a little gift for his father and brother and everyone else in Asgard. And if that's true, maybe Orion is just a being of pure Darkheart or something. Maybe, or maybe Orion is like, maybe he's not pure Darkheart, but like has a Darkheart core or something that like sustains him somehow. I don't know. Like that's another variation on this theory. I wanted to point this out. In Bryn's lore, it said that she can shoe an 8-legged horse. That 8-legged horse is Sleipnir, one of Loki's children, right? So Bryn, this suggests that Bryn possibly has, spent time with or is familiar with one of Loki's monster children, like this 8-legged horse. What if Loki allowed Bryn to pick up Petra because Bryn was nice to one of his kids? That's another thing. So how did I included this slide here because I wanted to kind of show like how this whole Loki Orion theory came about. Literally, this is in the Brawlhalla lore Discord server. Someone just is like, do you think Orion could be Loki? Just straight up, just out of the blue. We were talking about we were talking about Red Raptor's lore, right? And we were just kind of talking about lore in general, like different lore theories. This is just a random out of the blue kind of thing. And I'm like, Orion being Loki would be so hilarious. And I'm like, that's funny. That'd be really funny. Wait a minute. Wait, but like, it would make sense for this and this. It would make this make sense and this. We might be onto something. And that's how this all came about. So there we go. So to wrap this all up, it's been an hour and a half. What does this all mean? What's the point of all this? I mean, it's just a theory. It's a Brawlhalla lore theory. All right. It's just a theory put together by myself and other like dedicated lore nerds out there. I have no idea if any of this is actually on the right track or not. I don't know if BMG actually has a plan for Orion. I'd like to think they do at this point, but I don't know. Even if BMG is not planning anything with Darkheart, Terminus, or Loki, like, it's possible they are. Maybe they are building up to something. Maybe. But they also might not be. Even if they're not, it's just fun to speculate. It's fun to kind of look at these possibilities and potential connections. People ask me why I love Brawlhalla lore and why I got so into this is why. I've been talking about this for like close to 90 minutes. Okay? If nothing else, if nothing else comes from this could be a fun headcanon to explore through fan art and fan fiction. I would love to see it. Final thoughts here. I welcome rebuttals. This is a theory. Orion is Loki. That's my theory. I've given a lot of statements I presented a lot of statements from myself and other lore nerds about why I think this theory is possible. But a theory, with theory, the best theory discussions are ones that include rebuttals. Like, wait, but how would this make sense? Or this doesn't make sense with this. If you see evidence against any of these theories, let me know. If there are enough comments, that if there are enough comments that if there are enough counterpoints against these theories, I'll make a much shorter follow-up video to address and discuss them. A theory isn't static. It shouldn't be. It thrives and it changes and it's shaped through discussion. And I invite that. In any case, a lore master can dream, right? And this is the fan art that I teased earlier by Punished Mick, the person who initially brought up the idea that Orion could be Loki in the lore Discord server. Punished Mick made this image. And honestly, I love it. This is a fantastic, like, sort of imagining of what Loki, if Orion is Loki, and if Loki has been corrupted by Darkheart, he could very well look like this. Thank you very much. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end of the video. Wow. Thank you. I know my videos are just longer and I don't expect a lot of views necessarily, but I know that the people who care about this will watch it. The people who care about this will listen to it, right? And that's all I care about, right? Like if this interests you like it interests me, I'd love to talk to you about it. And like I said, this slideshow will be in the description below. and so you can look at it and kind of like, you don't have to refer to the video itself. I look forward to talking to you about it. So, and also, defensive, any BMG, any developer at Blue Mammoth Games, you know, defensive, other lore nerds there, Left Stick Down, White Sheepy, Rachel, Sloshula, Matt Woomer, anybody. If any of you are watching this, and if you decided to take time during your, I don't know, work day, listening to this in the background, I listen to videos a lot in the background myself while I'm working. If anyone at BMG is listening to this, you don't necessarily have to tell me whether I'm right or not. But if you're willing to talk more about this stuff with me, even in private, even like off the record and stuff, I'd be happy to. I think there's a lot of really, really cool ideas in here. I also want to especially thank Defensive for his initial theory that, like, again, before today, Defensive theory was my absolute favorite about, you know, Orion from a different from a different universe or whatever, and things like that. And I was really standing on Defensive's shoulders there to support a lot of the points about this Orion equals Loki theory. So, but yeah, I'd love to, you know, any opportunity to talk about this kind of stuff, I'd love to. Thank you for watching, for listening, and until next time, all the best.